You know, recently I've been sitting here and mulling over the different reasons Furina can feel so does-nothing as a god of justice. Maybe it's because she only cares to immerse herself in a courtroom drama, or maybe it's because she speaks with so much bravado and has the temperament of a child, or, and this is my personal favorite reason, she isn't the god of justice at all. That's right, my friends, I am currently tapping into my omnividence, granted to me by the powers of niggaology, to see past the act, or deception if you will, seeing as everyone in Fontaine seems to love that word, to call it right now, that Furina is not the real god of justice, because Furina is actually Istaroth, the god of time and wind, and one of the four shades of the primordial one.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
I'm making this little tidbit while I'm editing this video because I think I just had a breakthrough. Later on in the video, I stressed that there's an important question I couldn't answer. Why then, if Furina is Istaroth, was she crying in the fountain? And then it hit me. What if there's two Furinas? There's the original Furina, and then Istaroth comes along and pretends and assumes the form of the original Furina. But the original Furina is currently trapped in the oratrice, and that would explain why she says everything seems so endless, because to her it's a punishment being thrown in there. In addition to that, it could also help explain why this current Furina seems so weak, because either A, all the people's beliefs is in the Hydro Archon, which is actually in the oratrice, and that's what powers it, or B, the reason Istaroth doesn't want to use her powers is because she doesn't have any hydro powers, it's all wind powers. But I don't know, back to the video, boys. It's a crackpot theory, I know, but dude, that's what makes it so good. But dude, the amount of weird coincidences I kept running into regarding these two while I was researching something else was just so insane that I had to share. Let me start off by sampling Linny's quotes in the Overture teaser. The essence of magic is getting people to believe a lie, and the most important part of this is what people see. People don't realize how much they expect their eyes to tell them the truth, but what you see is not real, it's all a show. This quote helps to set the narrative that Fontaine is the land of deception, deceits, and lies. Everyone in Fontaine is wearing a mask of sorts. For example, take our first meetings with the cast of Fontaine so far. Linny, Lynette, and Fréminet we assumed were ordinary siblings who had taken up hobbies such as magic and diving. Tear down the mask and we can see their fatui. When we first meet Nervalette, we assume he's an ordinary man. He certainly looks the part, and sure, he's a high-ranking official, but that's okay. Although nothing's been confirmed yet, tear down his mask, and we might find something unexpected. Navi is a bit trickier, I will admit. We'll have to wait for her story quest for more information, but the theme of the truth being cloaked still lingers, but it's through her falsely convicted father, who chose to die during a duel to protect her, despite the fact that on the outside, it looked as if he had simply lost the duel. And now we get to Furina, where so far we don't really know much about her, so let's recap all we do know. Focalors is the supposed Hydro Archon of Fontaine, its god of justice. She had a controversial rise to the top, as when she took the steed of Hydro Archon, the ocean is bounced due to their dislike of her, believing she had tainted the waters with hate. We know Furina wants to judge the other gods, somehow, and we also know that she knows not to make an enemy of the divine. For now, that's all we really know about her, so instead let's turn to her Ars Goetia counterpart, Focalors, to try and estimate where Hoyo is going with her. The Ars Goetia, for those that don't know, is a book of demons that miHoYo used as inspiration for naming the gods in Genshin Impact. Each god draws heavy inspiration from their demon counterpart. I did a whole other video explaining the similarities between the Archons and their Ars Goetia counterpart. Feel free to check it out. Focalors is the 41st ranked demon notable for his control over water. He takes the form of a man with wings resembling that of a griffin. The thing that sets Focalors apart from the other demons, however, is his apparent desire for redemption, as he has hopes of returning to the 7th throne after 1,000 years. The Ars Goetia was made to record the powers, attributes, and offices of the 72 demons listed, so to see it delve into Focalors' personal motivations is highly unusual and extremely divergent. The Ars Goetia doesn't specifically state what the 7th throne is, but it's safe to assume that the 7th throne is some sort of return to glory for the demon. Whether it's simply heaven or a higher ranking amongst his brethren, he wants to go back there because it's better than where he is now. So in this sense, he's fallen. Of all the gods in Genshin Impact introduced to us with an Ars Goetia counterpart, only one other has the fallen archetype. Istaroth, the god of time, who's modeled after Astaroth, the great duke of hell. Astaroth is the 29th ranked demon whose appearance also bears wings. More interestingly, however, is that he holds the office of deceit and deception, and is known to deceive those who do not exercise caution around him. Astaroth will answer any question about his or any other's fall. It's interesting, huh? then in the nation of lies and deception, the one demon known for bearing those traits belongs to someone else, Istaroth, who is only ever described as loving and caring due to her actions like saving the people of Ankonomia, sheltering the Lawrence clan, or hell, even helping to plant the sacred seed. She resembles none of the qualities of her demon counterpart, which is highly unusual given all the Archons bear striking resemblances with theirs. The one similarity you can find is that Istaroth has too long since fallen from where she was, be it from Celestia or even simply being a god who once had many worshippers in 2 different nations, but where is she now? Nobody knows. Information about her has been lost to time, so currently Istaroth is not known by most and only has a few followers in the form of Hillychurls. So, maybe she rebranded, picked up a new element with a snarky little attitude, moved to France, the land of the baguettes, but hasn't let go of her dream to return to being something greater once more. Let's put that aside for now and jump into something else, the etymology of the names Furina and Istaroth. Furina is derived from the Roman goddess of springs Furina, who was a minor deity with very few followers. In fact, she was such an obscure god that a lot of the information regarding her and her people's practices for her have long since been lost to time. Sound familiar? Istaroth is derived from 2 goddesses, Astarte, the goddess of love, and Ishtar, also the goddess of love. Unlike Furina, both of these goddesses had widespread followers and were central figures in their respective pantheons. So on one end of the spectrum, we have someone whose names links them with the most well-known and respected gods, and on the other, we have someone whose name links them to a god so random you'd think I was talking about fish orgies. It's interesting, isn't it? Dichotomy, or rather, the fall. Now, if that strange set of coincidences weren't enough to convince you, well, don't you worry, buddy. I've got more. Remember the appearances of both the demon Focalor and Astaroth? Both were described as having wings, and focusing more on Focalor, when we look at the statue of the 7 over in Fontaine, wings are nowhere to be seen. This would mark the first time that a demon whose appearance bears wings is not reflected in their statue of the 7. The demon Barbados is often portrayed with wings, and that's reflected in Venti's statue of the 7. The demon Morax, Ball, and Boar don't bear wings, and neither do their statue of the 7s. However, the demon Focalor is often presented with wings, and its statue of the 7 does not have wings. That's strange, yeah, that's strange. You know which statue that's thought to be Istaroth does have wings? That's right, it's the good old statue of the 1,000-armed, 100-eyed god. Furthermore, let's look at the center of the statue. Do you notice something? A circular pendant of sorts, right? Okay, well now let's look over at Furina's model, because that's right, there's a pendant there too. As for who the statue of Fontaine is, I'd wager it's the previous Archon, because I mean, Kusanali doesn't look like her statue, so fuck it. Now, let's say Furina is Istaroth. Yeah, humor me. I'm sure you might be thinking, well, then what's her relationship like with Venti? Well, all we know is that Venti was once a wisp in the 1,000 Winds, and the 1,000 Winds is another name for Istaroth. And so, because of that, a lot of people think Istaroth is, Venti's mother. We know that Venti and Istaroth were close thanks to the sacrificial sword stating, "Animal brings stories while time nurtures them." However, Istaroth and all knowledge of her would be lost to time. How could Venti let that happen if these two were so close at one point? Well, it's quite simple. They had a falling out, I can assume. Something happened between the two that let Venti be okay with Istaroth losing her followers and being scrubbed from the history books. And guess who Venti just so happens to not like?
Court of Fontaine? The wine over there is a bit different. I'm most partial to their Fuller High Sapphire wine. But that winery... What are your plans for the next 2 days? I want to avoid Focalors, so it might be a good time to sneak off.
I just love it when it clicks together, man. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. This is not a leaked voice line, by the way. This is from way back in the day. It was deleted a while ago. Now, you might be wondering, why would Istaroth do this? Why would she leave Celestia to join the land of the Muggles? Well, what if I told you that Istaroth was always the odd duckling when it came to Celestia, and it was only a matter of time before she became excommunicated by them? She was the only shade that responded to Ankonomia and wanted to help Makoto free Inazuma from the Heavenly Principles. Istaroth seems to know how Celestia operates but doesn't like it, so who better than her than know not to make an enemy out of the divine? The way Venti and Zhongli speak about Celestia, you wouldn't even think it was a bad place. But Dainsleif chose the Hydro Archon in particular when making this quote. Why would she, over all the Archons, know especially not to conjure Celestia's anger? Hell, she wasn't even a part of the original 7, unless, of course, She was once a part of an even more original group, but has since fallen. This could help explain why Celestia is so goddamn close to Fontaine. It's because they want to keep an eye on her. Honestly, if this all wasn't enough to convince you, then I don't know. Let's head to Enconomia, I guess. A place that Istaroth is inexorably linked to. And guess what the two major elements of Enconomia were? That's right. The wind and water, baby. In Volume 3 of the Byakakakako collection, it's stated of wind and water. Byakakakako has no mountains to speak of, and so it is pointless to speak of them. However, our priests and sages have detected something. Even in these depths, the power of undying wind and water still remain. The personification of the undying wind is known as the Tokyo Okakami, and is poetically rendered the Thousand Winds or the Thousand Winds of Time. Water, on the other hand, is the might of the Bishop realm, represented by the Baptismal Bishops. So maybe it was because of, here she was like, oh, water's all not that bad. Let me just take that shit for my new identity. Who knows, man? And dude, just speaking, breaking the fourth wall, just speaking as a player, I think it's time we get the plot moving, huh? We haven't heard about Celestia or the unknown god or anything important in like 3 years, and we're damn near halfway through our journey. What better way than to reintroduce the plots than through a shade hiding amongst the gods, man? I mean, come on, bro, do something. All these Archon quests are like side stories, and then the plot only moves once a year through a Dainslift mission. Come on, baby, let's reintroduce the real baddies of the game, man. Now, with that being said, there might be some questions you have regarding this whole theory, and I respect that, okay? Questions like, how could she have made the transition from Istaroth to Furina without anyone knowing? Why hasn't Venti spilt the beans on her? Does Zhongli not know who she really is? Why does she wish to return from where she fell from? How does this explain her crying in the fountain? How does this impact her relationship with the Hydro Sovereign? Why doesn't Celestia just kill her? How does Celestia know what happened to her? Where is the current Hydro Archon? How did she get a Hydro vision? These are all great questions. Now allow me to answer them one by one.